Let's go for it!
Everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host here at the Dark Stuff channel. I'm back again with a new video, and this one I kind of just want to touch on a few different topics that are floating around my world, floating around the VC, and I want to address each of them a little bit in this particular video. So you're going to see me ranting a little bit on something about YouTube, entering into the fray in a discussion in a thread that's going around the VC. I want to show you some more clips of Esmé Patterson, who I saw again for the fourth time a little bit ago. Another great show. Got to hang with her a little bit. And then just briefly show a couple of new releases that I've been digging lately. I don't have any new pickups beyond what I had shown in my previous video, so I haven't had a chance to get out there yet with anything new. So that's what we're going to be hitting in today's video. Now, the first part of what I want to talk about has nothing to do with the vinyl community per se, but it has to do with something about YouTube that I learned last night or maybe this morning. I can't remember when I even watched this video, but I think it will affect every one of us to some degree. And maybe some of you already knew this, and maybe this isn't new information, but I just learned of it, and now I'm kind of alarmed by it a little bit. So all of us here have YouTube channels, and all of us have people who subscribe to our channel. And the idea behind that is you subscribe to somebody's channel so that when they make a new video, you are somehow alerted about it, or it shows up in your subscription feed showing new stuff of things that you want to see. You have chosen, I like this channel, The Dark Stuff, so when Dave puts out a video, I'd like to see it in my feed. I recently discovered that doesn't mean anything. That you subscribing to a channel doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get any notification whatsoever that that channel has released a new video. There's a new policy. YouTube has all of these different things regarding advertising, and there's a lot of major channels. You know, these are people who, they do this for a living and stuff. I don't monetize my videos. This isn't a career for me. I just do these videos for fun. Okay, I just want that on the record. But some of the big YouTubers are upset because they're somehow getting boxed out of their ad money that they were getting before. They're getting a lot fewer viewers than they used to. You know, these people have millions of subscribers, but their views are a lot less than that. And they've been raising the red flag about what's going on with YouTube and about all these changes to their algorithms and all that. Well, like I said, I don't have those kinds of problems. I have a much smaller channel. But I realize that I'm feeling the effects of that the same way that they are. And as somebody who is technically a content creator, because I am making content, I am making these videos, I'm doing it on my own time just because I want to, okay? Now, my channel, The Dark Stuff, at this point has over 500 subscribers, okay? That's decent. That's not, you know, record-breaking or anything like that. It's 500 subscribers. But what I think that means is 500 of you out there throughout the world, you know, have decided that you like my videos enough that you'd at least like to be notified when another one comes up. I'd like to see this person's video. Turns out, like I said earlier, that just by subscribing to a channel does not mean you're going to be alerted. You now have to subscribe and then take the affirmative step of clicking the little bell next to the subscription number, which then pops up and gives you the option of, do I want to see a video every time this person puts out content? Sometimes, or not at all. Now, I don't know why anyone would choose not at all, but then subscribe. That doesn't make sense. But the other part is you now have to affirmatively tell YouTube, yes, I subscribe to this channel, and I actually want to know about these videos, not just sometime, but I want to know every time, which should be the default, but apparently it's not. When I have 500 subscribers on my videos and I put out a video and on average they get between 150 and 200 views, that's surprising to me. Like, if I get 200 views on a video but I have 500 subscribers, that means more subscribers are not watching than are watching, okay? And again, I don't understand the idea of why would you subscribe to a channel if you have no interest in watching it whatsoever. So I assume that the vast majority of the 500 subscribers that I have, 500 and change, actually want to see this stuff, and they want to know when it's coming out, and that they're not being told that these videos are out, and therefore that's where the numbers are. Now again, I'm not doing this for a numbers game because this isn't my business. I just do this for fun, okay? But it is alarming that they would do that. Why would YouTube, Google, make it so difficult for the average person to see what they want to see on YouTube? If you subscribe to 50 channels, shouldn't your feed show the 50 channels that you subscribe to? Like, why should some be taken out of your feed even though you subscribe to it? And there was other comments about how the subscriber feed was working and it wasn't really putting it in various orders, and again, it was algorithming you out of seeing what you wanted to see. Now, a channel like YouTube, the only reason that they would do something like that, make you have to go through hoops to see what you want to see, is they want you to see what they want you to see, what they make more money off of, what they get something. And now, since I don't monetize my videos, they get nothing, in theory, you know? And again, even if I did, are they going to make much more than a few pennies off of the kind of views I get? No. It's just a control mechanism, and it's very sort of disturbing. I'm kind of bothered by the whole thing, you know? Am I going to go somewhere else? Am I going to ask you to pay me on Patreon? No. You know, YouTube is trying to address the issues with some of their major players who want you to be able to subscribe and pay money to have a membership program through YouTube, and apparently they're doing that. They're making some other changes. But those are for big content creators. But I'm talking about for guys like me and most of the channels that I watch in the VC, which I think are from anywhere between 200 to 300 subscribers all the way up to, I mean, Derek is, I think, like 15,000, but let's say he's an anomaly, up to like 2,000 to 3,000. That's the average vinyl community subscriber action. If you have 2,500 subscribers and only like 900 of them watch your videos, is it because the rest of them don't want to, or is it because the rest of them have never been notified and have sort of over time kind of forgotten about you, maybe because they didn't see your stuff coming up as much as they used to, or even at all, you know? So I am trying to tell everybody now to go to my page or wherever, maybe even on this video where it says subscribe. Make sure you are subscribed, and then click the little bell next to it and say that you want to see every video. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming that's what you'd want to do. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about was the thread that's going around that was started by James Griffith, vinyl professor, about is it rude or mean or whatever to say that an album is overrated?
Okay, so the most polite thing you could say would be, I'm sure it's great, but it's just not my cup of tea, which actually I do hear people say all the time on the VC. So.
And it's a thread that's going around, and Dean at Grandma's Handbag followed. I saw Tales from the Crates version. I know there's a bunch of others, but I haven't had a chance to see any of those. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. So not having seen how everyone else responded, I will, and even if I do touch on some points that other people have touched on, I don't talk from notes. I'm talking extemporaneously here. So for the most part, I have no idea what I'm about to say. So this is going to be some free-form shit for you. Dean over at Grandma's Handbag coined this brilliant phrase for what it's like in the rock world today, or about classifying what is considered a great album or a must-have, and he called it
the Canon of Received Wisdom.
The Canon of Received Wisdom. Okay, it's the ideas that you grow up with, meaning what is the greatest stuff of all time. And me, I grew up in the 80s. I was an 80s kid. I was born in the early 70s. And in the 80s, everything classic, everything, this is the greatest, was all the 1960s. And to a very real degree, it still is there, okay? Because a lot of the same people who have created this canon of received wisdom, critics and various magazines that have been around since that time, predominantly Rolling Stone and Jan Wenner, who started the Rolling Stone in the 60s and is still a part of it today, although I think he's not doing his daily duty anymore or whatever. He said duty.
He said duty.
I think a lot of that residual 60s buzz is like still going on, and there is still this obsession with that era. Now, having said that, I love the music of the 1960s. I have tons of bands from that period. It's hard to be a well-rounded rock and roll listener without liking music from the 60s, from the classics, from the Beatles, the Who, the Stones, the Kinks, the Animals, all of that stuff from the 1960s. You get into Jimi Hendrix and the Monkees and Janis Joplin and the Doors and all of that shit, right? So I think there's this perception that people have growing up, or at least I did, and Dean referenced this too, in that the thought process is that like this right here, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper, is like the greatest album ever made. Okay? Like, you cannot know shit about music if you don't agree that the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper is the greatest album that's ever been put to tape. Period. End of discussion. If you disagree, you're not qualified to speak, apparently. But when I was growing up, and I think you still see this because the music industry and the media is so big on nostalgia. They love talking about the 50th anniversary of this or that. Now, Sgt. Pepper, I don't want anyone to be misled. I think it's a great album. I love every song on it. There's not a bum note on the record. But if I were to make my top 100 albums of all time, this wouldn't be anywhere near the top, you know? It would probably break the top 100, but it wouldn't be anywhere near the top. Also, the idea of your sort of racial and cultural bias is a big factor, because when you're discussing this canon of received wisdom and is it rude to say that, which by the way, it's not rude, to say something is overrated, it's similar to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's so much debate about who deserves to be in it and who doesn't deserve to be in it. Because you can't have fixed criteria like record sales and say, well, if you didn't sell 10 million albums in your career, in your first 10 years or whatever, then you don't qualify, because we all know there are a lot of really classic artists that never caught that major audience, you know? Or you have to have 2 platinum albums. Well, that might disqualify Lou Reed from being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you know what I mean? You know, recently they added... They've been adding rap groups and hip-hop artists into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I read a lot of stuff from people just bitching about that. Like, it's rap, it's not even the same style of music, it's not rock and roll, blah, 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 it shouldn't be in there. I totally disagree. I think it should be. But then, you know, again, what is the criteria? Who are the people that are making these decisions? It's very hard to say. But I also think if you're a serious music fan and you don't have Public Enemy, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back in your record collection, or let's say The Chronic by Dr. Dre, the first one, I don't know, dude. I think you have a gaping hole in your collection. Whether you think you like rap or not, I think that's one of those albums like Sgt. Pepper, okay? Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is the Sgt. Pepper of hip-hop music. And you can't leave your discussion point back in the 60s and say that's the definition of what fits rock and roll and everything else is different. That's what punk rock came out for, because of shitty attitudes like that. So is there some merit in that old school system, the way that those people thought? Well, there's some. I mean, I like those lists. I look at those lists, the Rolling Stone, the Spins, the NMEs, all of that. But I also got to point out a couple of things. This is where I got a lot of my musical knowledge, is right here, the Trouser Press Record Guide. Do people remember this? Okay. Before the internet, when you heard about a band, you had to go look them up in the guide to see like what was the deal, you know, who were these people, and this would discuss like every record that they had. So here's the page on the New York Dolls, starts here, goes through here, but it explains like all of the various stuff, and then it'll say, see also Heartbreakers, David Johansen, Sylvain, Johnny Thunders. So then you know where else to look. But this is specifically skewed, and this is this one goes to about 1991, and then this is another version, the Trouser Guide to 90s Rock. And that one has a lot of overlap with this, but it also has a lot of the 90s, because this one's like, I think it caps at like Nirvana, Bleach. And their discussion is, yeah, they're a decent band, you know? And so it's like, obviously they didn't even encompass the fact that Nirvana kind of changed the whole landscape of music in the early 90s. In the commercial world anyways. I'm going off on a tangent there. But not everybody saw those kinds of books or cares about those kinds of books, but that adds to my knowledge. that adds to what I think of all of these albums. And so I guess this is my long-winded way of saying that it's not rude because the way that those things got placed there's so much, I guess I want to say bias, but there's also so much, there's a lot that goes into that, but it's a lot because the people who'd made those lists initially are still sort of clinging to the remnants of what they built, like the media empire and the media that they had and the record labels and all of that stuff, which is all sort of dying off, but they still have their claws in that stuff, okay? And I think when that gets shaken out, nobody's going to stop seeing Beatles records in the lists of greatest albums of all time, or the Beach Boys, or a lot of various 60s artists. But I think you'll finally start to see stuff like The Replacements, or New Order, or The Cure, or Public Enemy, or KRS-One, or just the myriad of other artists. I guess my way of saying it is music is all based on opinion, and you shouldn't get butthurt if someone doesn't like the same albums as you. It's not your album, okay? Now, Andrew over at Tales from the Crate kind of pointed that out. The only person that should feel hurt about that is the person who made the artist, who made the art in the first place, who made the music. If I say that I think Janis Joplin is overrated, and then I take it another level in the diagram and say because she stole her sound from Rocky Erickson, okay, do I have more, it doesn't mean that I'm slagging on you because Janis Joplin is one of your favorite artists and you don't know who Rocky Erickson is and you've never heard that. That's not a slag on you. It's sort of a slag on Janis Joplin, you know? So to wrap up this topic, for me anyways, is it is not rude. It is not an insult to somebody if they say their favorite album is Jimi Hendrix' Axis Bold of Love and you're like, I don't know. I mean, that album's all right. It's kind of overrated, you know? I mean, how are you supposed to be butthurt about that? I mean, it's just a general opinion. These lists have slowly been changing. The Canon of Received Wisdom evolves a little bit every, couple of years. But I think it won't be another 10, 20 years before people start really reassessing the 80s and 90s and realizing that stuff is every bit as significant as the 60s. And also, in the age of the internet, we can dig even deeper into the 60s and say, well, this band is considered the greatest of this sort of subgenre of 60s rock. And now you can find 10 other bands who never really made it at the time, but through the beauty of reissues is now known. Now that adds to the Canon of Received Wisdom that even people who were there in the 60s didn't know these bands because you couldn't know everybody and there wasn't an internet back then. So do you see where I'm going with this? I hope you do, because I'm not sure that I do.
Just go out and find it. Find what you need. Go chase it down and find it. Go find what you need.
All right, so we're going to move on off that topic, and real briefly, I just want to show you a clip or two from Esmé Patterson. You know how much I love her. She's so great, and she came to town again and played at a place called the Sydney, different place than I'd ever seen her play before. It was a really good set. They had no stage, so you're like right at, the stage is like maybe this tall or something, so it's like a foot. So you can get right up close, and I talked to Esmé a bit before the show. We chatted a little bit. I asked her what happened, where her bass player was, because the bass player who plays backwards and upside down wasn't there. He had some family stuff, so they had a different bass player, so it did affect the sound of the band. After the show, I went over again to talk to her and see if there's any new merch. There wasn't. I'm now all caught up. I have everything, and I said to her, hey, I already have all this stuff, like whatever. And she just turned to me and goes, I know, I'm working on a new album. I'm working on it. as though I were like giving her all this pressure, which I wasn't. I was just sort of like, I have all this stuff. I wanted to buy something from you, but there's nothing I can buy. And she was like, I'm working on the album. It's coming along. I've started. I'm doing this. Okay, so apparently she started on the new album. So she did play a couple of new cuts. Not too many, but I gotta say, this new stuff was great. She's just so awesome. And at this point, where I've mentioned her now in 4 or 5 videos, if you haven't checked her out, like, what do you do? Dude, what? Why are you... We'll go back to the beginning. Why are you subscribed if you... I don't know. Never mind. I'm not going to say, like, unsubscribe if you won't even give her a try. No, I'm not going to play that game. But anyways, she is fucking awesome. Okay, and then lastly, a couple of new releases I've been listening to a lot. I got the new one from Nico Case. It's called Hell On. It's just a slipcase promo version, but it's really good. It's produced by that Peter Bjorn and John or whatever, that group. So it's a different... It makes Nico Case sound slightly different. It's mostly noticeable on the song Bad Luck, which is the first single, which sounds very different from what Nico Case usually sounds like. However, still brilliant lyrics, amazing vocal performance, great songs. She's just a fucking modern gem at this point. And I think this guy's a modern gem as well. Father John Misty has another new album called God's Favorite Customer. And a couple years ago, he did an album called I Love You Honey Bear, which was this big love album, and about his wife, and just he was feeling awesome in life and everything. And now this album is the come down album, the breakup album, the everything sucks album. Okay, so it's real dark, it's real depressing, and it's real great though. So again, I know a lot of people have very mixed feelings about Father John Misty. If you didn't like him before, you're probably not gonna like him now, but if you liked it before and you were on the fence, again, you might want to try this record. And the last thing I'm gonna talk about is this album from Snail Mail called Lush. This is fucking great. This girl, her name is Lindsay something or other. I'll put her name up on the screen. She's 19 years old and has written this brilliant fucking album. It's on Matador Records. This is her debut. It's I'm opening up the little package in the CD. So lyrics are pretty much unreadable because they put them like that. So it's like really, really difficult to sit there and look at them. But she's really, really deep. She has this like, kind of like how Fiona Apple was 18 when her debut album came out, and you're kind of like, what 18-year-old has dealt with all this shit, has like this much life experience for such a young person? Now, with Fiona Apple is because of tragedy, because she was assaulted as a child. And it's a little bit different with this. I mean, I don't know what her situation is like that, but hard to imagine somebody this good at age 19. Is just, how could you have lived all that life? Because it just seems like an album for somebody who's lived a lot of life, and it's a great record. Fans of Liz Phair will appreciate this stuff as well. And that's pretty much all I got for you. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.